Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Chillaxin and Chit-Chatting podcast. Or, for those of you who are new to the podcast, a very warm welcome. I am your host, Miguel Whittle, and today I thought it'd be fun to do a episode that is entirely dedicated to the TV show that I have an entire section on. I'm a big fan of, which is, of course, Doctor Who. So regarding Doctor Who. This episode has been recorded on the 2nd of December, and as I'm sure most Doctor Who fans know, if not all of them, the news special, The Wild Blue Yonder, is going to air today. As of now, it is around just gone to 2:30. It's about 2:36 p.m. So the episode hasn't aired yet. However, the Star Beast has, and I thought for I do at least a podcast episode dedicated to each of the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials. So for this episode, I'm going to be just entirely focused on the 60th anniversary episode, The Star Beast, which was the very first Doctor Who episode that aired during this particular for the 60th anniversary. It aired on the 25th of November, and I thought it'd be good to do an entire episode about it because I have a lot to say about this particular episode. Probably even more to say when we get to the next episodes, but I think I still have a lot to say and a lot to talk about. So to start with, of course, as I'm sure most people know, Doctor Who recently had a return. So Doctor Who has recently just started to come back. It's been over a year since the last episode, which was The Power of the Doctor, which was the centenary special that was Doctor Who's way of being a celebration of the BBC's 100th anniversary, was also being the culmination of the conclusion to Jodie Whittaker and as the 13th Doctor, her era, along with the era of Chris Chibnall as showrunner. And of course, there was the announcement that as Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker was leaving, there was announcements that came round, such as Russell T Davies being announced to return as showrunner, taking over from Chris Chibnall, which is a new thing in a way, because even though it's a returning showrunner, having someone return as showrunner is a new thing. It's not been done before. And recently, as I told in the previous episode, I actually was watching the first era from Russell T Davies. I've gone up to series 4. I still have to watch the specials with David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. Oh, bless me. Oh, shake the camera with a little sneeze. Sorry about that. But the so I still haven't I'm gonna get around to rewatching the specials of the 10th Doctor, but also I decided maybe not to watch all of them because I was like overwhelming myself with Doctor Who, and I felt, I like to take a bit of a break from that. I'm still excited, of course, for the episodes, so I was, that's why I wanted to keep my excitement and not be like, another episode of Doctor Who to watch after rewatching a lot of David Tennant's era and the Christopher Eccleston's era. I finished series 4 with Journey's End, but I need to watch the next Doctor and up till the end of time, and then probably give a watch to the Day of the Doctor. I'll probably watch those after I've watched the 60th anniversary specials. Actually, once I've got around to watching those, I'll go ahead and rewatch the specials of David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, and then also get around to rewatching the episodes of the 60th, because I think first opinions on a first viewing might perhaps be unsure, but I'm still going to talk about it and let you know my thoughts. And also, that's my Tom Baker picture there. I want to also go ahead and just put the microphone here. Hopefully, it doesn't fall down. I want to also showcase the magazines I've bought before the Star Beast aired. So the magazines I have here are a Doctor Who magazine. This is for the Star Beast issue. You can see there's the Miriam Margolyes there, who of course voices the Meep, and then you have David Tennant there. I'll talk about the little aliens and creatures there once I get around to talking about the episode at first, but here's also the SFX magazine. I've read the Doctor Who section on there, so I've read a bit on Doctor Who magazine, but I've read all on SFX, and I read it before the episodes aired on the telly. And so, but let's talk. So, as I said, Jodie Whittaker left, and so did Chris Chibnall. And the interesting thing about Russ T Davies when he was announced as showrunner is who was going to be the next Doctor. And they've done this viral marketing thing, this social media marketing for the Doctor Who episodes where they have basically a number of emojis where it's like one's particular emoji plus another one, and then add another one. And the first one I think was two hearts and a blue square, and that was the tease towards who was going to be the next Doctor. And then finally, Ncuti Gatwa came in and was announced to play the new Doctor, which was very, very exciting. However, there was a little bit of an interesting history surrounding it because I myself assumed, oh, he's going to take over from Jodie Whittaker, but that wasn't the case, of course. And it was announced that David Tennant and Catherine Tate were returning for the 60th anniversary. But I assumed, oh, they're playing the 10th Doctor and Donna. That's kind of what was going to happen. But it wasn't exactly that case, obviously. I had never thought that David Tennant would come back as the 14th Doctor. There might have some that have theorized that, but I personally didn't believe it. Even if David, had a different costume on, I still didn't personally believe that he was going to go ahead and play the role of the 10th Doctor. Oh, sorry. Okay, so just had to pause that for a second. Hold on a minute. There was something going on. Someone was knocking on the door. It was a little bit, doesn't matter. I've sorted. It's been sorted out. But anyways, now I'm going to just actually. The good thing is I paused the screen so I could screen share what was going on. In terms of just screen share basically. Any sort of thing online to look into. Anyways, so we had here the Doctor Who episode of the Star Beast airing, as I said, and talking about David Tennant returning is I personally didn't believe that he was going to play the 14th Doctor. It was theorized by some people, but I didn't really assume it. Even if David's got a new costume on, I didn't think that was really anything to do with him playing a different incarnation on screen. But of course, that actually happened. So that was a bit of a surprise, I imagine, for not just me, but tons of other people as well. So the 14th Doctor was never said if he was playing the 14th Doctor, but there was also a theory that people said that when Ncuti Gatwa was, for instance, announced, he was just the new Doctor. He didn't say which number he was. However, the number eventually came through, and the number eventually was seen once David started, was revealed and shown in the costume, and we saw at the end of Power of the Doctor, of course, David suddenly returning and regenerating from Jodie Whittaker. If I go on to the regeneration GIF, I can hopefully find a good GIF to use. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to get into any copyright issues, but yes, we saw this happen, the clothes unveiling and everything, and then bam, David suddenly pops up with him, and he obviously knows and recognizes the face, and that's of course the mystery that surrounds what was going on. And we saw, of course, Donna Noble's going to return. We also saw the whole Noble family come in, and then that was really, and so like the costume of David was kind of leaked through filming. People kind of saw the costume and thought, oh, David's wearing a different costume. But yeah, as I said, I never assumed that he was going to play a different incarnation, but that is exactly what has happened. And it was very interesting to see what they were going to do with it. And so this then led to, of course, the 60th anniversary specials. And here we are now, finally, after a long wait, the first episode aired last week on Saturday, the 25th of November. And so the Star Beast is this episode here. This is the poster they've had for the episode. Each episode is going to has their own poster, and this is the one for the first episode, which kind of brings in this new era. And the thing is, on iPlayer, it's kind of separate towards the other two series. So this isn't like Ncuti Gatwa's first series won't be series 14. It won't be series 14. Instead, if I go on to the Whoniverse collection, you can see here it's just Doctor Who 2023 till now, which is a bit interesting. You also might remember, they also might have seen a couple other bits that teased that kind of were made before the 60th arrived. So this was a Children Need special was made, which was a couple of minutes, and it was also kind of giving us the first Doctor Unleashed as well, which was the behind the scenes look towards the Doctor Who series. It's a brand new series that's like Doctor Who Confidential here, where you get to see the making of Doctor Who as it was. And Doctor Unleashed had one for the Children Need episode, which saw David suddenly arriving, and he sees and suddenly happens to come across basically the making of the Daleks. It's kind of similar to the genesis of the Daleks, and he encounters someone who's working for Davros, and Davros is shown in the special, played by Julian Bleach. However, there was a bit of talk surrounding the change surrounding Julian Bleach as Davros, because even though he played Davros before in Doctor Who, mainly looking like this in Series 4 and also in Series 9 here as well. Here he looked like this. The guy on the left was the same actor, but that's how he looked like as Davros now. And Rosalie Davis gave a explanation towards Doctor Unleashed, saying this is how Davros is going to look now. And there was controversy surrounding it, or rather there was a talk about it, because Davros is no longer in a wheelchair, and Russell explained that now times have changed. Some people, it might be not a good taste to have someone who's disabled be like this villainous character suddenly appearing here. I personally I really understand and respect what Russell was going for, and I personally think that the complaints surrounding it isn't really needed. He's still Davros. The character is still there. He's just updated and evolved, and I'm fine with that. I mean, it's a well-known design, this one, but I can understand why perhaps to some people, disabled people, it's not a good idea to have a disabled character be the creator of Daleks and be this villain in Doctor Who. You also had what else was there about Davros? It was so there was that talking point surrounding it, and also I think for especially children in need, this is the point I was going to make. So for children in need, especially as well, it probably wasn't good to have Davros return and be in a wheelchair sort of thing, especially for children in need. And if it is going to be the way that it is, I'm completely fine with that. I'm not too fussed about it. And I think, it's not really too much to complain about. I think personally for me, I think it's a bit over the top complaining and moaning about it. And I just think that a lot of the complaints, most of them, if not all, well, most of them are from, these people you see on YouTube making those videos complaining about everything being PC and woke. And I don't personally like that. I'm never a fan of those types of people. And it's funny because some of these people probably assumed that when Russell T Davies was coming back, Doctor Who's going to take away that apparently PC woke stuff in Jodie Whittaker's era, but really there wasn't that much. It was just that there was a woman playing the Doctor, but also as well you had then the Star Beast came out, and you had one of the main characters being a trans actor who happens to also play a trans character who is known as Rose, who is this character played by Yasmin Finney. Now, talking about first the Star Beast, let's talk about the episode actually and see what my overall thoughts were on this. Because I've talked and described a couple bits and pieces. I also did watch the CBeebies bedtime story, which was fun, which basically had the Doctor. It wasn't David Tennant playing it wasn't just David Tennant as himself, which he's done before on CBeebies bedtime stories. He's playing the Doctor, which was, I think, really, really nice and quite cute, wholesome little episode. But let's start talking about this episode. So the Star Beast is an episode that is based on a comic book, which I mentioned before. And in fact, the poster here for the Star Beast, as you'll see here, is based on the comic book cover of the original Star Beast, the original Star Beast comic that started it, where you see here the Fourth Doctor, the Doctor protecting the Meep, with the rough warriors going against him, and you can see that similar look in the Star Beast poster for the episode, and it was pretty cool to see that. So when making these episodes as well, I remember David Tennant and Russell T Davies were on the One Show talking about these episodes, the free specials, and talking about how the episode overall, how each special has their own kind of feel to it. And Russell T Davies talked about it also in SFX as well in an interview, which I read, where I read it before I was going to watch the episode. And the thing is, with this being the new sort of like era of Doctor Who. So this era is finished, and this new Who has come in. Like it's new Who, like with new Doctor. It's a new Who. With this brand new era coming in, this episode is going to be watched by a number of people who haven't seen Doctor Who in years. And so this episode is meant to be a reintroduction to the series. And David Tennant and Russell T Davies said this is the episode that feels the most like a typical Doctor Who episode. You have your typical Doctor Who plot of alien invasion, aliens need to be stopped. The Doctor has to save Earth, and he teams up, of course, with his companions. That's what you get with this episode. And also, I'll just regarding this episode as well, the Star Beast also, as Russell had said in an interview in SFX, has the feel of a Pixar film, a family film. And I would say that, yes, it is that. Overall, in terms of this episode, I personally did enjoy it. I thought it wasn't the most mind-blowing episode, perhaps, but I think for me, it was a good reintroduction to the show. It did what I think it was meant to do, where I don't think Russell T Davies is going to show off fully his creativity and the changes he's going to bring along as showrunner. He's there mostly with this episode. He's mostly writing it by taking a popular comic book that many people may have recognized and also reintroducing it to millions of other people, and also going ahead and taking this episode and basically making overall, as he said, a Pixar film, a fun family adventure that everyone can enjoy. It's an episode that's not too scary or too bizarre. It's not him pulling out all the toy boxes just yet. He's teasing it here and there, but for the most part, it acts as an episode that reintroduces the show. And I think for the most part, it works on that level. I think for me, it's probably a 7 out of 10 in that terms of rating, in terms of its 6, 7 out of 10 being a fairly fun episode that mostly did what I think it was meant to do. One thing as well about this episode is that it also saw the return of director Rachel Talalay, who has directed episodes from the 12th Doctor era. And I think for many people, we were very excited to see her return as the 12th, as a director. So there's a couple of episodes she's best known for working on. Some of the 12th Doctor's most popular ones, like Heaven Sent and Hell Bent, which are very popular episodes. Well, Heaven Sent is, I personally really like Hell Bent, but Heaven Sent is a very, very popular episode that I think recently in a poll became #1. So for many people, it's considered as the best episode of Doctor Who out there. And Rachel Talalay's direction is really good in that episode, as well as also the Doctor Who Series 10 episodes she did, the final episodes, World Enough in Time, Doctor Falls, and Twice Upon a Time. And those episodes, I think someone pointed this out, but those episodes are very big in terms of emotional stakes. They're the final episodes of the respected series. But with the case of the Star Beast, it's not only the opening episode, it's also one that I think Rachel has something different to work with. She doesn't work with not just a different doctor, but she's also working around with a new era, but also she's also working with an episode that's mostly not, that has emotional moments there. I think there's moving moments throughout. There are some moving moments in the episode, but she's mostly working on an episode that's there to be entertainment. It's meant to be a fun episode. And I think that's what is interesting about this episode, that she's working on an episode that I think mostly is just to be a fun episode. It's an episode that's not too emotionally devastating, because I think that comes later on. This episode is more so a case of let's have some fun with it. Let's see this TARDIS duo of the Doctor and Donna return. And speaking of them, I think both David Tennant and Catherine Tate were really solid in this episode. The episode, I think they showcased some really good talents. And talking about, I want to talk about David for a bit, but talking about Donna, actually, in terms of Catherine Tate, I really liked her as a character. I've always liked Donna as a character, and it's nice to see her come back. And she did have a lot of fun, memorable lines coming in. And I do think it was interesting how they brought along the resolution, that the resolution is down to her daughter. Now, I know there's been some talk around this episode because it happens to include a trans character. And to some people, that's apparently disgusting. To those people, I say, go away. Because I personally was really probably one of my highest compliments to the episode is the representation they gave towards trans people. I kind of I wasn't too sure if they would have Rose be a trans character and also they would actually describe it, but they do have it. The Meep as well, the furry little creature that at one point at first is trying to befriend Rose, is asked by the doctor about pronouns because that's what Rose, says to the doctor. You're assuming he's a he. You're assuming it's a he, and he said, "Yeah, good point." And to be honest, I feel a bit. It's a bit odd to me that I was surprised by this because Russell T Davies, being someone who is a member of the LGBT community who cares so deeply about it and representation. I mean, for one thing, before Doctor Who, he did recently come into the news not too long ago about the first season of Loki, and he complained about how there was not much there wasn't much in terms of the representation of Loki being bisexual. It wasn't really said out loud, and he personally didn't like that. And it's interesting as well because he brought along a director of the first season of Loki onto Ncuti Gatwa's I think second season of Doctor Who. But anyways, it's interesting that he's talked about that. And it's interesting as well because it's interesting that he's not only said that, but also of course he made It's a Sin, which I will get around to watching, which became a very big success for Channel 4, where it was set during the 80s and it talked about the AIDS situation, the AIDS epidemic that had happened during the 80s, when AIDS and HIV was a big news point surrounding it, and it would be associated with people from the LGBT community because that's what most people believe it was. So if someone had AIDS or HIV, most people would then figure out, oh, that person must be gay, even though that was a wrong assumption. So It's a Sin was a big success, which was the last thing he worked on before Doctor Who. Was the last project, one of the last projects I think released. I think he also did Nolly as well, not too long ago, maybe last year. But Doctor Who has this representation here, and this representation I personally really liked, and I personally liked and appreciated that they did this, especially for not just parents to see it but also and understand it, but also to have younger kids, as Doctor Unleashed said as well, because the episode of Doctor Unleashed I watched as well, which was really good, by the way. It was really awesome seeing that they had a basically Doctor Who Confidential coming back in some way, and it was really cool because you had Yasmin Finney, who plays Rose, talking about the representation, because there is a moment near the start of the episode where you have Rose being dead named in the episode, which was mainly there to probably showcase the bigotry surrounding it. And then you had Donna being very supportive, which was really nice that Donna's so supportive of her daughter. And also, so is, I imagine, Sean Temple, which was fun to see him as well in the episode. And personally, it was really nice to see that. And also, it's interesting as well seeing that they mentioned the doctor being he, and neither, which is, I think, really nice to, mention that the doctor can change any gender and doesn't really have a tied down gender, which is really nice as well. And was interesting seeing that. I think some people have complained in a right way, I think, about the resolution, that it might have come across as a bit rushed and sudden. That, to be fair, it was perhaps quite quick and in terms of like getting round to figuring out what was going on and sorting it out. But it's interesting that with Rose being the daughter of Donna, it means then Donna's memories are carried over. So like it doesn't hurt as much. It won't burn her brain out, because some of the memories of the Doctor and that Time Lord memory and aspect to Donna, which happened in series 4 at the end, has come over to her daughter. And the thing is as well is, regarding that Time Lord situation, the episode does open with a reintroduction to Doctor Who. So you have the episode open up with the Doctor and Donna talking to the camera, and they basically go ahead and give you a recap as to what had happened. That's the intro. I'll talk about that at one point, but as I said, the representation was nice. And I think saying non-binary as well, they said that binary, binary, and then non-binary. I was like, oh, okay. So really for me, I personally liked it. And it's not Rusty Davis being forced at all. It was his decision to have it. And also it being on Disney Plus is quite impressive that they're going to have this on there. And I think, in Doctor Unleashed, as I said, Yasmin Finney talking about how I think it was her and Rusty Davis talking about how kids can look up to Rose as a character and in some way can identify with Rose if they're perhaps going through what Rose went through in terms of finding out who they are. And actually, there's a bit in the episode where Rose says, "I'm finally me," which is really nice. And yeah, that's definitely one of the main praises I have for the Star Beast. But talking about the Star Beast, as I said, Rose befriends at the start the little furry creature called the Meep, which is this little cute little guy here. This is a character that appeared in the comic books as well. And in the comic book, it was two kids who befriended the Meep. Whereas in this episode, it's Rose who first befriends the Meep, and at first, with the Doctor and the noble family, go ahead and try to help the Meep escape from the Wrath Warriors, these big, massive creatures that you can see here. These massive green creatures, which they all look pretty good. But I definitely say that with Doctor Unleashed giving quite a lot of detail as well surrounding the Meep, and also the comic book illustrator and writers of the Doctor Who Star Beast comic with Pat Gibbons, who was the writer, and the illustrator was Dave Gibbons. There's like that they went on set, which was really cool, and they even had their names credited on the episode, which was really cool. And one of my friends online, who's a Doctor Who fan, said that it's great that in a time where Marvel has a reputation for not crediting the writers of the original comic books that they're taking inspiration from, it's cool that they do credit the original writers and illustrators of the Star Beast comic book, and they actually got them onto set to see the episodes being made. And you add David Tennant being such a fanboy as well to them about, I used to read the comic book, which was really nice and shows you just the great passionate fan that David is of Doctor Who and that he really is a lifelong fan of the show. And regarding the Meep as well, it's a great design because it's both practical and CGI, and it looks very, very impressive. And it's a really great bit of work. And you have, of course, Miriam Margolyes doing a terrific voice work for the Meep. Now, I did know about the Meep. Well, actually, I'll go into spoilers once I talk about the non-spoiler areas. But actually, no, to be fair, I did talk about some of the spoilers. I should say that bit regarding Rose, that was kind of a spoiler. But so I'll go ahead and I'll talk about in non-spoiler terms as well. The Meep is a very cute character. The Wrath Roars are also pretty well designed. The episode, I think, does have that fun pace and feel to it. I also did like I've forgotten the name of the character now, but it's the character that is played by she basically was a member of UNIT. So you do see UNIT in this episode, and actually there's a moment where some UNIT members go ahead and basically take a news reporter, take him away from reporting what was going on when basically at the start of the episode a spaceship crashes down. And I think that was pretty cool in terms of seeing basically the episode of it was cool seeing basically the Doctor Who seeing like the news report, which was from the old time in Rusty Davis, where you got like BBC News and the American News Network as well, where you got these news reports coming around, which made it feel like the world was watching, the general public in terms of the Doctor Who universe is knowing and seeing these alien situations happen. And regarding the Star Beast, actually, there's a character in UNIT who's the scientific advisor, which is the job that the Doctor had, which is pretty nice to see. And she was fun in the episode. And let's see, she's the actor Ruth Madeley, who plays Shirley Ang Bingham, and she is really solid in the episode. There's a bit where she has darts in a wheelchair and she says, every member has it in a wheelchair, and that's quite nice as well, seeing that bit of representation as well. Funny enough, what's interesting about Ruth Madeley is that before Doctor Who on screen, she did play a character in the Big Finish audios, playing this companion for the Sixth Doctor, which I haven't listened to. probably will do at some point, but she did play a companion to the Sixth Doctor, which was quite interesting seeing that. And so that was cool seeing that. So that's a character that is quite nice. And I imagine that maybe she'll hopefully return for, I imagine, the third episode, The Giggle, where I believe in that episode we're going to see in the third special unit come in, and also Kate Stewart comes in, which I think is which will be cool to see. It makes sense, I think, for her to return and not just be a one-off character. In terms of the direction from Rachel Talalay, I personally didn't see like amazing moments, but it's nice to just see her come into the director's chair and direct the episode. I probably will watch the behind the scenes video online and also the in vision commentary, which is really cool. They haven't done those in years, apparently. So it'd be nice to see the in vision commentary where you get people watching the episode and commentating. You get to see them commentating. It's not just an audio playing in the background, which is going to be really nice. And I also watched the podcast that's been released, the official Doctor Who podcast, where three people, Crystal D, who else are the other two? There's two other people that host the podcast with Crystal D, who are also Doctor Who fans. And so the episode is podcast wise, it is hosted by Tyrell Charles and Juno Dawson talking about the episode. So that's going to be quite nice to probably listen to or watch. Personally, I overall found the episode, as I said, to be a very fun episode. And I think David Tennant is good as the Doctor. I think he's got a couple of differences, not too many, but people have pointed out and started to realize I've started to realize, as people pointed out, there are some differences surrounding this particular version of the Doctor. You get to see that he still has the same personality for the most part, but there's changes to his character, little bits of changes that showcase that this isn't exactly the same person, that the same 10th Doctor that we saw on our screens back in the 2000s. It's someone that carries that leverage of the 11th, 12th and 13th Doctors. So the personality, it's a more warmer kind of incarnation that's also not as egotistical as the 10th Doctor, not as vain as the 10th Doctor. So that personally feels it feels really interesting. And the intro as well is really, really good as well. The intro, the opening titles, I should say, the intro has some really good visuals surrounding it. There is only a couple of things I don't like. I don't think the theme song, like, I think it gets cut off and plays a bit too, it doesn't really work. I think the theme song might be too quick in terms of playing. I also think that when the title, the logo does appear, it doesn't do what they've been doing since like 2005, where it's like dun 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 da da da, that bit of the music. Usually, then the logo appears. That doesn't tend to happen. I think that appears after the logo appears or before. I'm not too sure, but that kind of thing is why I think maybe it needs to be maybe the intro could be fixed by that, and also maybe the logo appears in a more visually nicer way. I think the logo appears a bit of a cheaper way. I don't know. It looks like just, I don't know. It doesn't look as interesting seeing that. It doesn't look like a visual effect has come around with the logo like they've usually done. So I think that could be worked on as well. But one thing I do absolutely love is the TARDIS interior. I personally saw that, and it's an amazing TARDIS design, a new interior that looks amazing. And I don't think they're going to use them just for the free specials. It will be used throughout. I hope it does. I hope it's not just a one-off TARDIS design, because it looks too great and too big in terms of scale. I won't give it away, but it's too big in scale and design to give it away and not use it for more than just like 3 episodes. So hopefully Shooty will carry it over, and maybe Shooty will add some things to it. I think someone on Twitter said to me, maybe Shooty will have some bits and pieces that will be uniquely his, that will help make that TARDIS uniquely his, different towards David as the 14th Doctor, which would be really nice. And yeah, I mean, as far as TARDIS interior goes, I think I'm still probably liking the 12th Doctor's TARDIS interior the most, but that new TARDIS is a very close to top spot. I might want to see more of it to judge it, but I do think that might be my new favorite TARDIS interior. That's one of the best things about it. I think also in terms of the storyline, if you know the comic book, or at least know what happens in the comic book, you won't get too many surprises surrounding what happens in the storyline of the comic. The surprises mainly come round towards the Dr. Donna situation and how it gets kind of resolved in some way as of now, which I think is pretty interesting. And I think the way that it ties into the Wild Blue Yonder gets into the next episode is pretty funny, but the next time trailers do indicate that weird, scary episode as well that's been hinted at, which I'm excited to check out tonight. So hopefully it should be really, really awesome to see it. I also will say as well about David as the 14th Doctor. I might have said before, but personally, I actually do think that his new costume is better than the one he's had as the 10th Doctor. The 10th Doctor one's nice and all, but I don't know. The 14th one, I like the colors more of the blue. It looks quite nicer, personally. But yeah, it's interesting seeing how that turns out. And I think the episode did make me laugh quite a number of times. I actually did like Sylvia Temple. I liked her in series 4, who's Donna's mum, and I liked her in this episode as well. She was a lot of fun in the episode as well. And I won't give away about Wilfred as well, but Wilfred is mentioned, and it's interesting seeing what they do, because I think, you know, I'm interested to see what they do with what happens to Wilfred's character. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. And as I said, overall, I personally think that the episode is overall a pretty solid episode. Not my favorite, but I might give it a watch and may enjoy it even more. So I don't know. I might give it a watch to see another watch to see my overall thoughts on it. The thing is, it's difficult to say fully loads of things and try not to repeat the same thing over and over again, because I don't want to spoil anything, and obviously spoiling it wise, and obviously that means, treading on like thin ice, trying to not go ahead and say too much. But now that that's been sorted out, I want to probably start talking about the episode in full detail, into full spoilers and all. But before I do that, I do want to showcase that recently there has been a uh recent photos revealed for the upcoming Christmas special with Ncuti Gatwa. So Christmas Day on Ruby Road. These are the images that you get there. I'll go and find some more. There we go. This is a bigger image, but these images got revealed recently. This is for the Christmas special that's airing this year. So you don't have to wait too long for Ncuti Gatwa's first full episode as the 15th Doctor. We will get so David Tennant's episode airs on the 9th of December. That's the third special that comes after the one today. And then as for Ncuti's, he comes on the 25th, which is on a Monday, but it's on the Christmas Day. And I think Russ T Davies, I think I saw a quote somewhere where Russ T Davies said one of the things he always wanted to do as a showrunner was bring back the Christmas specials, which I think will please a lot of people. I think there was a funny video, which was when Doctor Who was going to come onto HBO Max a couple of years back, and there was a Zoom interview with David Tennant, Matt Smith, and Jodie Whittaker, with a host talking about it, Doctor Who and everything. And Matt Smith said, "Oh, there's one thing I missed, David. It's the Christmas specials." And David's like, "Yes." And then you have just Jodie there watching, and it's a bit awkward for me, I think, watching that, because Jodie is in the New Year's Day specials. That was her era. But anyways, you have the Christmas episode, so you only have to wait about over 2 weeks, about 3 to 2 weeks of the next episode. So there's not long to wait for the next episode of this episode. So as you can see here, we have also, here we go. This is the quote from Ross Davis here on the BBC website. "From day one in this job, I wanted Doctor Who back on Christmas Day, and with Ncuti, Millie, Davina, and the Goblin King, I hope it's a feast for all the family." Now, regarding the situation here, we have Ncuti Gatwa here as the 15th Doctor. There's Millie Gibson here playing the role of Ruby Sunday. Davina Bacall has been announced to be in the episode. And then there's a goblin who's the Goblin King in this episode as well, which looks an interesting cute little monster, similar to the Meep in terms of a cute little creature. This one here, though, is clearly trying to, I imagine, more villainous. But it's interesting seeing what they do here. I'm interested to see how they do this. It's interesting as well because David Tennant, of course, is the Doctor now, and it's funny because the last time that we had a Doctor's first episode and era begin on Christmas Day was actually David Tennant, because his very first full episode as the 10th Doctor was the Christmas invasion. And, with Matt Smith, it was the 11th hour. Now, he regenerated on Christmas. That was true. But his first full episode was on the 11th hour, which was in April of 2010. Then for Peter Capaldi, it was August 2014. And then Jodie Whittaker, it was October 2018. So for Ncuti, it's the first time since David Tennant's 10th Doctor that a new Doctor begins on Christmas Day. Now, I did hear some controversy around Davina McCall surrounding she's in support of J.K. Rowling, or rather this podcast about being in support of J.K. Rowling. Not very nice, not pleasant, but putting that aside, this episode, I'm hoping, will be a very fun episode and will have a great passion surrounding Russell T Davies making an episode that just overall begins the era very strongly. And I think for me, I'm very excited to see what Ncuti brings and also what Millie brings as Ruby Sunday. I obviously Ruby Sunday being a modern day companion might not be the most interesting, but I think hopefully there will be some interesting aspects surrounding what they do with her character, and she'll hopefully stand out from other companions as well. I think most of the companions from the modern day era have had different aspects to them that do make them stand out in some way. So I do think that you can still do modern day companions, with different personalities and everything. So hopefully we'll get that with Ruby Sunday and Ncuti Gatwa. And seeing the videos of those two together, they also seem to have a great chemistry with each other that I think really, really will hopefully work very well. I'm hoping for all the best. I mean, putting aside the situation with Davina McCall, I'm sure it's hopefully not the worst thing out there what's happened. I don't want to judge too much, but I think from the credits, it might be that she's playing herself, which is interesting. She did play kind of a version of herself before on Doctor Who, where she basically played Davina McCall, or rather the robot version of Davina McCall, in the Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways episode. It was Bad Wolf, I remember, where in series one's first part of the finale, where the Doctor is suddenly in the far future, and he's playing a version of Big Brother, and Davina McCall, who narrates voiced over Big Brother, is basically doing a robot version of her. She's talking over as the Big Brother voice, but it's a robot version of her voice. So that's, I think, quite funny but here you can see Ncuti Gatwa here, as we see all the snow and everything, which is really nice. This is a costume that he's been often associated with. Not the first costume unveiled, but it is one that I do like. I like the orange leather one. I think there was some showing of the filming on set a while back where he was running through I think it was a graveyard or near a church, which was interesting. And there's Ruby Sunday, played by Millie Gibson. Funny thing is, when Millie Gibson was announced, I think she's about 19, and it's the first time that a Doctor Who companion is played by an actor that's younger than me, which does make me feel it feels a bit weird having that situation. And then you have the character of Davina McCall here, and then you have here the Goblin King, which it's an interesting looking design. I'm interested to see what they do with this episode. And see what Russell's got cooked up. I'm guessing with his excitement, he must be very eager to bring Doctor Who back onto Christmas. I may not watch it on Christmas Day specifically because of Christmas spending time with family and everything, so that may happen. But for now, that's the details surrounding it, and that's what I'm going to say in terms of non-spoilers. Now I'm going to talk about spoilers in full about the Star Beast. So I'll leave you to it, and I'll say to anyone who was watching this just in non-spoiler form, thank you all for listening or watching the Chillaxin and Chit Chattin podcast. But for now, I'm going to cut off and say, let's begin with spoiler talk. Okay, let's begin with spoilers. So I talked a bit about Rose and the representation and the Doctor being he, she, and neither, which is really nice. But let's talk for a minute. So I talked about the intro, for instance, and that I like it, but there is two things that I think could be fixed or solved. But let's talk for a minute about the other aspects from the Star Beast. So talking about the Meep, actually, the Meep, of course, in the comic book, as well as in the actual episode, was revealed to be, of course, the villain. It was revealed that the Meep was actually the bad guy and that the Wrath Warriors never actually killed anyone. They just stunned the people around them, and it was actually the Meep who was causing the problems, hypnotizing the unit soldiers in the episode. And it's interesting as well. It was one thing that I think was quite good is that they did manage to showcase the Meep being evil in a funny visual way where it's got the angry eyes and everything, and it's changes suddenly to that. It's really funny. And actually, as well, the Meep did say about the boss that they are working for. It's not been revealed who the boss is. It could be very much Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker. That could be an easy sort of figuring out because being that he's going to appear in the third episode, chances are there's going to be some talk about, well, maybe he's the one responsible for everything, which does make it pretty obvious sort of thing. Sorry, I'm just itching a bit. But Miriam Margolyes, I think, did a really good job in terms of voice work, and that's because she managed to sound really cute and adorable as the Meep. But then when the Meep turned evil, it was really great to see just suddenly the Meep, her being able to get a very evil type voice for the Meep. Oh, yeah, my microphone's fallen off. The Meep getting this evil type voice is really awesome. And it's really cool seeing. Let me, Mike. Hold on a minute. Bring it, Mike. There we go. Okay. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so the Meep, talking about it, yeah, it's a great performance from Miriam Margolyes. I think she manages to balance out the good and evil side. It works really well, and it's clearly having a lot of fun with the role, as is I think all the cast. I think all the cast did a good job. Like Yasmin Finney as Rose, Catherine as Donna, Sean Temple as well was great as well. I enjoyed seeing him. It was nice actually seeing him return. He was actually a pretty good. He was pretty good in the episode. I thought it was nice seeing him, and I think he did an overall fun job in the episode. Like, there's a joke about him not caring about Donna going with the Doctor and the TARDIS, and Donna says, "Oh, with me and this other guy in the box," and says, "Yeah, not really him." Doesn't think the Doctor's really attractive or anything, which I thought was quite funny. And actually, what was great as well is there's this little joke that they did in the episode where where the Doctor knows Donna, and he says to Sean in a lying sort of sense that he knows Donna because of Neris, and I was found that really funny because that's a reference to the Runaway Bride, where in that episode, Donna's first appearance, there was Neris who was invited to the wedding, everything, but was clearly sort of a frenemy of Donna's, someone who Donna didn't like too much. There's a bit where she talked in the wedding, and then Donna's like, "Thank you, Neris." That was, I think, really funny that they brought Neris's name back. It'd be funny as well if Neris does come back in like the third episode, because I don't think it's going to be the second episode, because I think that episode is just going to be the Doctor and Donna. And the next time trailer seemed to indicate a very interesting episode. And that next time, and the little previews we've gotten of the Wild Blue Yonder actually showcase one of the things about the 14th Doctor as to why there's been talk around him being more nicer to more kinder to the Donna. There's a bit here where he's just grabs Donna's hand, kisses her hand, and says, "I'll get you home." And that sense of kindness, and I think also the bit where he's talking to Shirley Ann Bingham, I think her name was, the character I mentioned that works as the scientific advisor for Unit. Yeah, it is Shirley Ann Bingham, played by Ruth Madeley. You saw like a bit where he's talking about Donna to her, and you have him saying, "I absolutely love her." It says, "Oh, do I talk like that now?" Which I think is really nice, and it's great when you have this moment here, and that showcases that this is a different version. This isn't just 10th Doctor again. This is a new incarnation that carries a lot more baggage and carries that wisdom towards what had happened, and carries that sense of someone who is more kind and maybe more open than the 10th Doctor. And it's also someone that isn't, very egotistical, full of himself, sort of thing, which is nice. Actually, what was fun is I didn't notice this bit of dialogue that Sean Temple has where the Doctor gets out the psychic paper and it says mistress on the psychic paper. He says, "Oh, still new," or something like that. Actually, what was interesting as well about the Star Beast is that it opens up with the Doctor, coming out of the TARDIS, and he's just landed. There's not really an explanation to what was going on, and it seems like, you don't know fully really how long he's been the 14th Doctor, which I think means it's open to expanded media. And I mean also for as well, it works actually probably for the sense of it doesn't really explain, what happened. He says, to Shirley that he one time was a woman, and that's mostly it. And he says, then I got this face, and that's mostly it. You don't really know how long he's been the 14th Doctor, which I think is interesting. And I think works because you have the opening where he talks about Donna and what had happened, and that's basically to recap what had happened. But then after the intro plays out with the Doctor Who logo and everything, we then basically have just an episode where you get the Doctor riding off, and I think for the most part that's good and actually probably works to have that sense of, well, you know what, let's not go ahead and have too many explanations of everything. This is going to be a reintroduction as well as a introduction just to new people what you have never seen Doctor Who before. So it works to just not have too much like remember this and that sort of thing. It's just the 14th Doctor's here, just travels around and then bam, goes along and encounters Donna suddenly. And that actually really, I think that works actually in its favor. And as I said, I've talked about the intro. I'm not saying I liked it. I liked it, but I think there was a couple of things that I think maybe you need work on. But one thing I did love is the TARDIS interior from the 60th anniversary. This thing is absolutely amazing. I love this TARDIS design. As Donna says, it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful thing. And actually, what's really funny is that the reason why they go to the Wild Blue Yonder is likely because, the TARDIS suddenly, Donna spills a coffee because the TARDIS is a coffee dispenser, spills the coffee, and then she does it again because she apparently lost her job because she spilt coffee on the computer. That's really funny, and I thought that was actually really funny to just see that resolution. But yeah, this TARDIS looks absolutely wonderful. This might have been leaked and talked about before, but this being the new TARDIS is absolutely incredible. It's a wonderful TARDIS, and as you can see, its lights change color, but it also has that round things that were in the TARDIS before in the classic series, which is really awesome. And it's why I like the TARDIS from the 11th Doctor and the 12th Doctor, where you have this look that feels like a bit like the classic series with a modern aesthetic. And that's, to me, my favorite type of TARDIS. When you do a modern update on the TARDIS interior, it has the aspects of the classic series, whilst also making it a bit of a modern sleek to it. And this is also looking to be the biggest TARDIS set out there. And I didn't realize as well that instead of stairs, it's just got ramps. So for wheelchair users and everything, like, it works for people. It really works, which it can work for wheelchair people, which I think that's pretty cool as well. But yeah, no, personally for me, this TARDIS looks absolutely wonderful. It's a beautiful looking bit of production work. I think the team at Doctor the Bad Wolf and everything, they should be 100% proud of the work they put in with this. This is a gorgeous looking piece. It's absolutely lovely. And in terms of what they did with the Dr. Donna, the resolution has been talked about as maybe being a bit rushed, which I think might be true. I think it could have perhaps been explained a bit more because you have suddenly Donna suddenly having a daughter, which kind of works, but then suddenly it's like, oh, she suddenly does have her memories and it's all fine and dandy, which is a bit of a weird sort of bizarre thing. It's a bit of like, oh, okay. So I do wonder what exactly is happening. And Donna does ask, for instance, why did the Doctor's face come back? So maybe Donna's memories and also Donna's fate and also the Doctor having a similar face will probably get some little explanation. I imagine it's not just going to be there with no answer or explanation. With someone like Russell T Davies writing the episode, it probably wouldn't work. But yeah, the 14th Doctor, as I said, mentioning the differences as well, that was really nice. And actually, as well with the Star Beast, not only can you rewatch the episode, but the novelization from Target came out recently, which was through ebook. The paperback version, the physical copy, will come out in January, but the ebook version that has been released already. Sorry, hold on a minute. So the Star Beast book came out recently, so you can go ahead and read that now, which I will probably read that at some point once it comes out in paperback, which will be really cool. And of course, the Wild Blue Yonder and the Giggle will eventually get released as well. But regarding Donna, as I said, the explanation did feel maybe a bit kind of like sudden that Donna suddenly remembers. I will say as well, I was surprised that the Doctor saying, "Why does it have to be this way?" yells out was in that episode. I assumed it would be Wild Blue Yonder, but it's not. It's him saying it in this episode. So a lot of the clips from the Star Beast have appeared in the trailer, meaning that episodes 2 and 3 are much more secretive and obviously going to be much more different. So with episode so with the Star Beast, with Donna suddenly remembering and everything, it's a bit of a, I think to be fair, it was a bit sudden and quick to suddenly see her suddenly remember, well, to see that it suddenly didn't affect her. And they did explain with her daughter, but still, I think maybe a bit of a better explanation could have suddenly happened, because suddenly it was like, oh, okay, so she's okay in the end. And it does make me wonder what they're going to do with Donna's character, because obviously they're going to exit, or rather conclude her character, I imagine, in some way that should be hopefully very interesting and should be nice and satisfying for viewers. I know there's been talk about the leak that surrounded it, that people saying it could be real. I personally don't. I know one bit about it basically, and also apparently some bits in the Christmas episode have been kind of revealed to be true. So I don't know. I think personally, I don't know too much about the leak, but it is annoying that people have revealed so much of it that me and a lot of other people who've tried to not see the leak have kind of seen it in some way. So that's kind of something that I think is a bit annoying. And I think, at least with people who know about the leak, please just don't try and reveal it too much to other people. It just isn't nice personally to do that. Because there was a leak that came out not too long ago where you had basically the specials plots being revealed, and then what had happened towards how 14 regenerates into 15, and then also what happens within the Christmas episode. We don't fully know if that's going to happen, and even if it did happen, we haven't seen it visualized. And I think visually it could change a lot of people's idea and perception on what had happened. I won't reveal what happens to the leak in terms of 14 turning into 15 and everything, because I don't want to spoil it for people. Because I don't personally want to be one of those people. But yeah, that came through, and yeah, there's been a talk about a bit. But regarding aside from that, putting aside from that, and going back towards the fate of Donna, I'm interested to see what they do, and also who the boss is. Could be from the specials, or it could be hinted towards Shooty's first season as the kind of ongoing arc. No idea what exactly happens. Now, regarding, as I said, Donna's bit, as I was saying, it's a bit rushed here and there. I don't mind, Donna suddenly carry on with the memories. It kind of makes sense when thinking about it that, she's able to work around with the Doctor and know who it is, because she kind of knew who the Doctor was eventually at some point. She suddenly says Doctor, and I think Sylvia says the same thing that the audience is thinking. We're thinking, oh, she said Doctor. And then that leads to the Doctor saying, doesn't want Donna to remember, but has to in some way. And, says, why does it have to be this? And that bit's quite moving, actually, as well as Donna, you thinking Donna's dead. And I'm surprised that that bit was in the episode, but David's delivery of, why does it have to be this is really, really great. Him yelling, why does it have to be this? In terms of moaning and getting angry about Donna having to sacrifice herself. We do know that another clip that played in the trailer with after why does it have to be this, where the Doctor's banging on the wall, is in the Wild Blue Yonder, because it was teased at, which I'm going to see the context surrounding that. But the Donna resolution I might watch again to see how it is. But yeah, I personally do think it was kind of something that might have perhaps maybe needed some more, not maybe, I don't know if it was more explanation, but maybe just have it build up a bit more rather than just suddenly bam, it happens and then here we go. There was one bit in the episode actually as well that I should say that I didn't really notice because I watched the episode it references, but the Doctor puts on a wig like a judge in a court, and it's a reference apparently to an episode of Doctor Who called The Stones of Blood, I believe it is, from the Key to Time season, where the Doctor, Tom Baker's Doctor, has that. And the Doctor, the 14th Doctor, seems to have that in his coat pocket, which I think is quite funny. And as you'll notice here, of course, he has the sonic screwdriver, which does bring up, I think, one thing that I personally think is that the Sonic is maybe a bit overpowered in this episode. He seems to have in this episode able to create like force fields that he's able to use as walls to take away, shots being attacking, which I think from shots blasting at him and his companions, his friends, which I think personally I'm not too sure on. I think maybe perhaps that I feel like maybe the Sonic doesn't get an explanation surrounding it, so it's just like, oh, okay, that the Sonic can do that now. It's kind of why when they got to the fifth Doctor, Peter Davison, they destroyed the Sonic Screwdriver, and then the sixth and seventh Doctor never really had a Sonic Screwdriver. The seventh Doctor only had a Sonic Screwdriver briefly in the TV movie. And funny enough, he only really used it, I think, to just lock up something. So he just used a real basic screwdriver sort of thing. So that was it. But yeah, the Sonic Screwdriver got kind of removed because I think it was seen as a Deus Ex Machina and not really, and seemed to just solve everything. But I do like I think the Sonic Screwdriver being used as kind of a way to visualize what it's reading, which, to be fair, I think is quite nice, and I think is a bit of a nice change to the series where you get to actually see how the Doctor's reading things, because you just saw the Doctor looking at the screwdriver and saying, "Oh, I'm reading these sort of signals and everything." And it's like, how does the Doctor read that? Obviously, you could say he's a Time Lord, but still, I think it's something that you can talk about. That should be, yeah, it's something that perhaps you may want to talk about and have some more of an explanation. But because of the time, actually, because it's getting past an hour, I might want to wrap this up at some point. But as I said, the intro I still enjoyed, but maybe needs a bit of work on. The Murray Gold music I mostly enjoyed. I think Murray Gold's music was quite nice. I'll have to rewatch the episode to like get some things to remember. But yeah, the bit with Doctor, revealing Donna's memories, and this bit here where the Doctor has to go ahead and say particular code words that get Donna her memories back and then has to burn up her mind. That's emotional. That was quite a well done bit. And David's performance was great in that, as well as also Catherine Tate. And of course, the rest of the cast were also really solid. And actually, with this bit here, Wilfred was talked about, and the Doctor thought Wilfred was dead, and I assumed that, but then it turns out Wilfred isn't dead, but instead, I think Kate Stewart is taking care of him in a I can't remember where it is, but he's being taken care of somewhere else. And that's really cool because it does mean that even though he's not in the episode, Bernard Cribbin's character was still alive. So, and because, it was said that he was there for filming, hopefully he should be there. And I'm guessing he's in the third episode. And I hope he is, because it would be really awesome. And also, it would be quite moving to see him again, but I think it'd be really awesome to see him again. And as Donna says with the Doctor, it'd be great for Wilfred to see him again. And it would. I think it'd be awesome to see them again. And if that's in one of like the final scenes of the 14th Doctor or something, I think that would be really awesome. And I think would be a very nice, I think hopefully with the third episode, they could do a very good way to say farewell to the character of Wilfred. And I personally think that would be really great. I think it would be really awesome. I think also he does say as well, he said, he loves Donna. He also says, I love that man, which is really nice and also quite fitting because even the 10th Doctor would probably even think about that because he says to Wilfred in the End of Time, Part 2, I'd be proud if you were my dad. And that was a really lovely moment. I mean, even Wilfred also kind of says, the Master kind of even says, John Sims Master says in the End of Time Part 2 as well, jokes with the Doctor, oh, your dad's kicking up a fuss, where he's, referencing that, joking that Wilfred's the Doctor's dad. And then Wilfred says, I'd be proud if I was, which is really nice. It's really awesome. But I overall had a good time with the episode. Overall, I'll have to give it another watch. It's not the most amazing episode, but I think it served a good purpose in reintroducing the show, has some good representation, and also overall just had, as Russell had said, the feel of a very fun kind of blockbuster kind of feel to it. A very fun family episode that feels the most like a Doctor Who episode. And it's cool that, as I said here, you can see here Pat Mills and Dave Gibbons getting credited for their work, which I think is really awesome. And I do recommend Doctor Unleashed, especially if you're interested in wanting to work in the TV and film industry, because it is a really good show. And you even get a moment where one crew member talks to Steph, the host of the show, Steph Powell, I believe his name is, about the microphone and the equipment. and how to work on set, which I think is really cool. And as well as also looking at the details surrounding how the meat gets created through practical and then visual, and seeing the person in the costume with the meat being interviewed. And then also you get to then see the visual effects. That's all really cool. And what was cool is you got to see a next time trailer as well as a little preview of Wild Blue Yonder, which I think is really cool. There was a next time trailer in Doctor Unleashed, not on Doctor Who the episode The Star Beast. There was no next time trailer, which is interesting. So I guess it's the best of both worlds for people who also don't want to see a next time trailer, because some people may not want to be spoiled by any clips whatsoever. So that's fair enough. But talking about Wild Blue Yonder, this is the poster for the episode for tonight. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do with it. I personally think that in terms of what they'll do with the episode, I think what they're probably going to do is, some people might have thought, because this episode is also the most secretive, because nothing has been revealed on set, not much clips have been shown about it, so it's the most intriguing episode for people. However, I don't think people have assumed that because of that, it's going to have loads of cameos and people appearing suddenly here and there. I personally don't think it's that. I think this is going to be, and I hope it is, a two character study, a episode that just basically is a David Tennant and Catherine Tate, basically almost a solo episode with them, with the exception of this robot that apparently is going to be in the episode. And from the looks of it, it seems to be kind of indicating towards that we're getting an episode that is just these two people and examining them as characters. Some people even reference that it could be Scherzo, I believe its name is, which is a Big Finish audio. It's the next Eighth Doctor audio I need to listen to aside from Zagreus, where you basically have the Doctor and Charlie, the Eighth Doctor and his companion Charlie, in this area where they're basically in an area where I think they're surrounded by a creature who's entirely comprised of sound. So it's an episode that can't really be achieved on television. It's an episode that is one that examines them as characters, and it's one that I think is meant to be just them examined as characters. And it is these two characters examining each other whilst also facing a creature of entirely of sound. There's a little quote there, I'm guessing, but I won't read the quotes because I don't want to be spoiled by it. But it's written by Robert Shearman, and if it is that, I think sounds very interesting, very exciting, and also could be an episode that could be quite creepy and scary in terms of what they're facing. It could be a case of like Midnight as well, that episode of Doctor Who where the 10th Doctor is on a bus with a group of people and they encounter this creature they don't really see at all, but it takes the possession of one of the passengers, starts copying like whatever anyone says, and it leads to this psychological journey with the 10th Doctor and these group of people. And it's a very good episode that's also pretty scary in terms of how humanity can go against each other. I won't give away too much if you haven't seen it, but it's a very scary episode in terms of humanity. It's maybe its worst, and the Wild Blue Yonder, if it's like that, should be very, very exciting. I think it'll be more exciting if it was that than if it was just cameos appearing left, right, and center, because I think that's what just is expected for something like a 60th anniversary. But I do like that. I think Phil Collinson, the producer, has said that these episodes are going to be not cameo multi-Doctor episodes like they usually have done, because we've had that already for about the past 50 years. Let's refresh it and do something different to celebrate Doctor Who's 60th anniversary. Episodes that celebrate the show, whilst also with, the Doctor and the 10th, David Tennant and Catherine Tate returning, as well as, the Russ T. Davies sort of thing. But let's also add new things like adapt a new comic book, do episodes that are different towards the show, what they've typically done, and gets the start to reintroduce another Doctor again, Ncuti Gatwa, number 15. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I hope that we get something like that. And I'm guessing that from what we're getting at, it's going to be something akin to that. I don't know if Ncuti's going to appear at all in Wild Blue Yonder as well. I did predict that in the Star Beast, it's not going to be Ncuti Gatwa at all. We're just going to see David Tennant because we need to get used to seeing this Doctor first before we start getting the next one coming along, which makes, it made sense. But yeah, I'm very much interested to see what they do with Wild Blue Yonder. It's pretty cool as well because it's an episode that's airing on my birthday weekend. So having a new Doctor Who episode on my birthday weekend, and it's also the episode that is the one most fans are intrigued by, is a win for me. And I'm very excited to see what they do. And yeah, I will probably rewatch the Star Beast, and as well as the other 60th anniversary specials again, probably after I've rewatched the 10th Doctor specials and gone through the Day of the Doctor. May watch Power of the Doctor again, not sure, but maybe just watch the regeneration for 13 and then go through all of David's appearances on screen, and you then get, of course, the 60th. I'm not sure, but it will be very exciting to see what they do with the 60th, and it'll be very exciting to see what they do with the rest of the 60th, is what I should mean. And obviously I'm going to see the rest of it tonight. And yeah, as for this episode might be uploaded perhaps maybe tomorrow on Sunday, the day after Wild Blue Yonder ends. So the episode obviously is going to maybe not be like as recent because the episode's already aired, but that's not a problem too much. I should hopefully air it at some point soon. I'll try and upload it as soon as I can. But for now, I'm going to wrap this episode up and say thank you for all watching, or rather for listening to the Chillaxin and Chit Chattin podcast. So yeah, as I said, I hope you enjoyed watching or listening to this episode, and be sure to leave a like and also subscribe for more episodes. You can check out the previous episodes at the credits when I have a playlist as well for the episodes of the Chillaxin and Chit Chattin podcast, and also a playlist for the segments. I might do some more segments as well for the Chillaxin and Chit Chattin podcast, mainly on Big Finish, for instance. And I'll probably talk about a thing I listen to on Big Finish maybe another time, but we've talked already quite a bit about this episode, the Star Beast, and also what's coming along on Christmas. And because we've gone over an hour, I don't want to make this episode too long, so all I'll say is thank you very much for checking out this episode, and I will hopefully see you all next week when when I talk about the Wild Blue Yonder, and of course next week we get the Giggle, and I'll eventually get around to watching that episode and letting you know what I think as well. So I should say now, thank you all for listening and watching, as I said, and yeah, all I can say now is remember to stay chillin', and always remember to keep chit-chatting. Thank you very much.